Bienvenidos y gracias a todos por estar acá. Y estoy muy agradecido por que estén todos acá y que me hayan dado un tan linda bienvenida en Argentina.
And so, I have many choices. I can talk about history first, or if you know your history, you can ask questions.
Tiene muchas opciones. Puede empezar ella hablando de la historia de Locking o pueden hacer preguntas y ella responde.
History first. Let me ask you a question. Who is the creator of Locking?
¿Quién es el creador del Locking?
So everybody knows that, right? In some countries, some people don't know this, and it's the truth.
Hay algunas personas que en algunos países no conocen esto y es la verdad.
And this is why I'm here teaching his history, because Don is, he always said to us, those who were able to meet him, he always said that his dance was a gift from God, that although he created it, he was like, I didn't create anything, I was touched by God. So that's very important to remember, because he wanted to share the dance with the new generation. That was the most important thing for him.
Es importante recordar que Don decía que él no había creado nada, sino que era como algo que le había bajado de Dios, como crear esta data de Locking.
Y decía de que no, igual se escucha, ¿no? ¿Sí? Sí.
Yeah.
Ya está. Entonces, only for you.
Okay, so you understand all that.
Only for you. Bueno, entonces es que lo que pasa es de que dice que viene de arriba y por eso, como viene de arriba, no se lo atribuye a él la creación de Loki, él se lo atribuye a Dios. Y dice de que porque se lo atribuye a Dios es el amor a la danza en sí misma y no le pertenece a nadie, en verdad. Eso es lo que quiere decir.
And share it with the new generation.
Y compartir con la nueva generación todo este conocimiento, este baile.
I'm getting good with my Spanish.
Estoy mejorando en mi español.
So, of course, the story when Don, I first talked to Don, and I first went to meet Don in B-Boy Summit, 1999, right? But I saw the red hat leave the room, and everybody's like, "You missed Don," and I was very sad, cansado.
Dice de que la primera vez que conoció a Don fue en el 99 en la B-Boy Summit, que es un evento, uno de los primeros eventos de Estados Unidos, uno de los primeros. Y dice de que cuando ella llegó ahí, cuando llegó el gorro rojo de Don Camel se fue, como que salió del escenario y todos decían, oh, te lo perdiste. Y ella estaba muy triste y después puso como un emoji de chat.
Yes, because I spent mucho dinero to go from Montreal to Los Angeles. All right, but if you want to learn the history, the fundamentals, and the foundation, back in the days, we had to travel to get the keys.
Dice de que antes las personas que querían aprender los fundamentos bien tenían que viajar, no había tal cosa como there was no videos, no tenía videos ni nada de eso, tenías que viajar ahí y aprender con las personas.
So I went back, after I spent so much money, I went back 5 years later in 2004, and finally Don was teaching a class, but it's a funny story. Brian Green was teaching a class too, and he's a student of Brian Green, a good friend and partner, and Brian Green was mad at me because I didn't make it to the class because he had the first class, but I couldn't find my way, so Shakalak from New York gave me Don Campbell's phone number, and I called Don. You know when you get some like an OG's phone number, you're like, so I called Don, and he gave me direction on the phone to make it to his class.
Okay, entonces ella dice de que no lo pudo ver, entonces volvió después de 4 años de vuelta para poder encontrarlo y aprender con Don directamente. Y dijo que también es una muy chistosa historia porque también conoció a Brian Green, que Brian Green es el maestro de él. Y Brian Green quedó muy enojado porque ella no pudo llegar a la clase.
So we made it to the class, right? And this is a very important story because it's my first time meeting Don. And so we get to the class. And in those days, there were not many lockers either. Like now. Ooh. Yeah. And so I walk in the class, he gives me the direction, and I'm flipping out, you know, because Don is talking to me on the phone. And you know, there's a b-boy event, so there's like all the b-boys, there's all the, you know, poppers, and there's different people. And the rooms that we got kicked out of the room because the poppers needed a bigger room. So the lockers got kicked out in a small room with no sound system and no music.
Entonces, cuando ella fue a aprender con Don Campbell, su primera vez conociendo a Don Campbell, eran muy pocos lockers, no habían casi nada de lockers. Entonces, bueno, recordemos que la Summit es de los B-Boys y había también muchos poppers. Entonces, como habían más poppers, le daban la sala más grande a los poppers y a los lockers no le daban una sala sin nada, ni siquiera con sonido ni nada.
Zero music. So we did soul clap to start the class. Soul clap. So you know what's a soul clap, right? It's like you just start like boom, and we're just like this. We're just like. That was my first class with Don to begin.
Dice de que como no había como no podían poner música, entonces hacían el ritmo del soul clap. Y el soul clap es lo que recién le mostró recién. Y decía de que esa fue mi primera clase con Don.
All the lockers, it was very good lockers there. Scramble Lock, P-Lock, everybody was there that year, you know. Flowmaster, even EB Skeet was in the class. Everybody was in the class. But the thing is that we created the rhythm, and Don started to teach us, and they bring the thing later. But the way Don was teaching us was with the fundamentals first, right? But he didn't explain it this way. He was just showing, because that's what they did back in the day. They show us, you know. So he said, first you lock, then you point, then point at the mirror, look at yourself, go to the mirror, go down the soul train line, lock, give yourself 5. And we were like, yeah, but how about the Scooby-Doo? How about the scuba? How about the stop and go? He's like, no, that's not locking.
Okay.
Right? So you want to do?
Dice que la forma en la que Don les enseñaba era como diciéndoles directamente, ahora haces lock, ahora haces point, ahora haces clap, como que no se detenía a explicar cada movimiento, y también solo les pasó como los básicos, digamos, y le preguntaban, bueno, ¿qué onda? El Scooby-Doo, el Stop and Go, y como que él decía, no, el locking es esto, point, coso, lock.
Yeah, and so, like I showed you yesterday, we spent time just doing basics, but my generation of locker, we saw locking different. People were doing flips and half split and knee drops and crazy things, and a lot of like the teachers at that time, before Dawn, that already started teaching, people like Sugar Pop, people like Evie Ski, Greg was already teaching, they were teaching more techniques, right? So we went to Dawn's class and we thought, oh, but that's it. And we thought we could learn more, but he gave us all the keys, but we didn't realize that this was what was most important, is what Dawn was teaching us, not all the rest of the technique that we were learning. And we thought, okay, it was fun, you know, but we really didn't think we learned anything at the end of the class. Like, we had fun, but we were young, you know. I was at that time 30, I was still older than most, but I was still young. So that's why most of us, even though we took Don's class, we kept taking everybody else's class, Greg's class. Scooby was not there. We kept learning from all the people that we can, the knowledge. But Don gave us all the knowledge already, we just didn't know. And he didn't know how to explain it to us because he created it. He didn't decide to do a point, he was just doing it. He was always in the moment, and I think that that's what we realized much, much later. I realized it when I was 45 years old, when Scooby came back, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
Dice de que... Ok, para que...
It's a lot.
Sí, no, it's okay. Entonces es así, cuando tomaron la clase con Don Campbell, ellos todos quedaron como, ¿esto es todo? Porque ella explicaba de que diferentes personas que enseñaban locking enseñaban powers, ¿entendés? Como saltar, volar, dar vueltas, y ella decía, sí, era muy divertido, pero al final, o sea, con mucho más tiempo después me di cuenta de que me divertía, pero no aprendía nada. Entonces, lo que ella se dio cuenta tomando la clase de Don Campbell es de que con estos 8 básicos que él daba, vos hacías todo y tenías de más, era un montón.
También acoto que
Yeah.
no
You lost your voice too.
dice que también no muchos profesores como Greg, como Scooby, regresaban mucho a enseñar las técnicas y en la clase de Don Campbell nunca vieron técnicas, pero como no hay una técnica de point, es point.
Yes.
Porque Don Campbell decía eso porque él no sabía, no le puso nombres, eso antes lo hacía.
So at the end of the class, Don always sits in the chair and talks to everyone, to all the kids. And this is the most important thing in the class. So most lockers went to take the popping class or the next class, the fluky class, there was other lockers there. But I stayed back with Don because I wanted to hear the history, his story, right? But most people left and I sat there, and that's when I first understood the whole, okay, why did he start locking? Why did he, and he was telling the story about how he dressed and why he dressed like that. Why he started doing the lock. And now you guys know, the robot shuffle, he was drawing dancers. He was trying to learn, but first he was an artist. He was drawing people, sketching dancers, and as he's drawing them in Trade Tech College, he started liking it and he wanted to learn it. But he always said he had 2 left feet. He did not know how to dance. He did not know how to soul dance. He was very bad at it.
Dice de que...
Dice que al final de la clase la mayoría de los lockers se iban a tomar otras clases de popping o lo que sea, pero que ella se quedó porque quería saber sobre la historia, quería que Don le contara dónde había salido el lock, que también le contó por qué se vestía así, cómo era que se vestía, y dijo que Don antes de bailar dibujaba, y como que empezó dibujando bailarines y viéndolo se colgó. Y ahí fue como que se copó para empezar a bailar, pero él siempre decía que tenía 2 pies izquierdos, como que era muy torpe para la danza.
I have a question.
Yes.
¿En qué época pasó, en qué año pasó esto cuando ella fue a tomar esa clase? No sabes.
2004. 2004.
2004.
Yes. 2004.
And so at this point, I'm sitting and I'm missing the other classes because I think it's not important. This man is more important. I need to understand. And so he didn't yet teach us that it was the robot shuffle that he was doing. That's soul dance. And if you know the robot shuffle, it's really a soulful dance that is a social dance. But because he couldn't do it That's the paradox of locking, is that everything was here on top. There's no footwork. The only thing he did was the Campbell walk, which not the one that you think, but Campbell, and it's this one. That's the only thing he would do eventually with the locking when he would walk around. So this is why we understood that when he did Soul Train, the reason why he was doing the knee drops and the half split is to go down the line faster, because he had to go, since he's not a dancer and he can't go down the line doing like the rock steady or the breakdown. He's literally flying, knee drops, run, slap, swan dive. So he could go down really fast because, Tyrone, what's the other, the Soul Train host? Tyrone
Banks.
Huh?
Tyrone Banks.
Tyrone, no, Don Cornelius,
Cornelius,
sorry.
Don Cornelius.
So because Tyrone and Don Cornelius was this close. So yeah, Don Cornelius, he hated lockers. On Soul Train, he did not like lockers. Yeah. And whackers, he did not like. Yes.
Okay, so, no, que odiaba que Don Cornelius, el host de Soul Train, odiaba a los lockers.
Ah, pero tú lo que dijo antes.
Ah, sí, todo. No, ella está explicando de que, bueno, acá está explicando la paradoja sobre de dónde viene el lock, como lo creó Don Campbell, que es el shuffle, el robo shuffle, que en verdad es un movimiento muy soulful, que es una danza social, pero la paradoja es de que la parte de arriba es lo que es locking, y abajo en verdad el footwork no es así, solamente se puede mover haciendo el camel walk, nada más. Y dice que, bueno, también te das cuenta que no de verdad, Don Campbell no de verdad bailaba, porque por eso es que él tiraba tantos power moves, porque como no podía bailar hacia el frente o como las personas, entonces él corría, en Soul Train, él corría y se tiraba, él corría y pegaba, ¿entendés? Porque necesitaba poder moverse y desplazarse.
Y el Campbell Walk es lo que acaba de mostrar.
Sí.
Sí.
Que no es lo que pensamos que es.
Que no es lo que pensamos que es.
Because this one, when you do this Campbell walk, it was named by Greg when he was teaching, right? But Don would do that naturally, but this one that he would do is always like the walk that he would do, and this is why when you see Demita Joe doing the funky guitar, she does Campbell walk here, right? So she added the arms to it, right? But this is like, the other Campbell walk, the big Campbell walk. It's different.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, that Campbell walk came before the funky guitar?
You know what? Yes, because Demita Joe added she was doing Dawn, and then she told me this, she added the pa, pa, fu, ka, ka, and so she made up the funky guitar, but she added the arms to it on Soul Train, because they were partners, her and Dawn.
Entonces ella está explicando de que en verdad, bueno,
¿Para
porque
qué
preguntaba.
Yo pregunté si el Campbell Walk que ella mostró es anterior al funky guitar, porque yo tenía entendido que el funky guitar era como un paso social anterior. Y me dijo que claro, que la de Campbell es anterior, y Damita, que es la bailarina que tocaba en ese mundillo que era compa de Don, le agregó en Soul Train los brazos del funky guitar.
Y también dice de que el Campbell Lock que ustedes conocen no es el Campbell Lock que le está mostrando acá, Campbell Walk que le está mostrando acá, ¿por qué? Porque Greg lo enseñó más de la forma que ustedes conocen.
Esto se lo puso Greg al nombre.
Aparte de eso, yo creo que Don Cornelius no le gustaban los lockers. No like.
He didn't like the dance. He thought the dance looked stupid. He hated it. And he didn't like the lockers. Reason why eventually Don left, there was a lot of drama, politics, because they were getting too much attention. Everybody, they became the Soul Train gang, where they were more famous than I remember Scooby told me he would get hundreds of letters from fans all over the world to Danila, to Scooby, to Don. So they had a lot of jealousy, like there were too many eyes loving the Lockers and loving Danila. And so Don Cornelius preferred that people like walk down, and so every time, the Lockers would go, he would say, when Don got kicked out of Soul Train, he said to the other Lockers, I don't want walking anymore. But they still did it. Scooby still stayed, but it was the thing. He didn't like locking. He thought it was not a nice dance to us. And that was his show, so he could decide.
Don Cornelius, he's a very sophisticated black man from Chicago? Philly. Yeah, from Chicago.
Yeah.
Soul Train was first in Chicago.
Yes.
Then later on it went to LA.
Yes.
But if you see all the time, he's very, suits, ties, he speaks, hello everybody. Yeah. So,
Yes.
Bueno,
Go.
entonces ella explica de por qué, porque le preguntaban por qué es que Don Cornelius odiaba a los Lockers. Él odiaba a los Lockers por 3 razones principalmente. Bueno, comenzamos con la que él explicó, que me recuerdo más rápido, es de que él dijo de que Don Cornelius es una persona como sofisticada, ¿eh? Y habla de esa forma, es de Chicago, y es como que tiene que tener una postura, ¿entendés? Y él le parecía, la segunda razón es porque le parecía que la danza era estúpida, como que no le parecía que era seria. Y después también la popularidad,
Sí.
la
O
danza
cualquier danza.
no, locking.
How do you have already
Como una
said
danza
that,
burda.
Como
that
una
you
danza
don't like
que le decía como tonto.
Yeah, he said the whacking too. Yeah.
he liked Tyrone, but
He liked Tyrone.
he didn't like it. It was a little too.
But if you see Tyrone later, he's walking. He's literally like doing a gargle.
The
Like,
walk.
Yep.
he's like he stopped walking. Everybody was stopping walking.
That's called the walk down, right?
Huh?
The walk down. Right?
I don't know, me, I was just like, yeah, maybe it's the walk down.
You know the
Walk. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I was just, because when I learned, about the garble was about like being a model, you walk down it's like the picture from the magazines. And so Taiwan was more like this, but imagine the Lockers were, with, like dressed like funky. It was too wild for Don Cornelius. And so this is why Don eventually got kicked out, because Tony Basil, oh,
Yeah.
Wait.
Translate George's words.
oh yeah, but you said something about the blackface.
Yeah, you okay.
No. Yeah, so, entonces la tercera razón es porque el locking se volvió demasiado popular. Como que se volvió demasiado popular y todos lo miraban y todos querían mirarlo por los Lockers, ¿viste? Y le llegaban un montón de cartas a Greg, un montón de cartas a Don, un montón de cartas a todos. Se volvió súper populares y Don Cornelius no quería esa atención hacia ellos, ¿entendés? Quería que... Y también le parecía de que era muy loco lo que hacían los Lockers.
You have to also understand the history of American dance, American black dance, and what was going on at that time in America with black people, right? 60s, 50s, 40s, before that, black people in America were treated bad by the European Americans, right? From, of course, everyone knows slavery, but then you had the blackface era where black people, they wouldn't allow black people to perform on stage without painting their faces black with either white or red lips, gloves, and they would make them caricatures, make them look really stupid and try to make everyone that they see think that black people were dumb, stupid, lazy. A lot of cartoons were made like this too. Mickey Mouse is a minstrel character. So during that time of Soul Train, this is kind of the first time black people are being seen nationally in a new light, outside of the getting chased and bitten by dogs and water hoses. This is black people actually in their element, moving, dancing, smiling. So Don was very kind of wanted to be protective of that, so it didn't seem, you know, for me, that's what locking kind of looks like sometimes.
Muy importante.
King dice que tenemos que entender la historia de la comunidad afro en Estados Unidos, de que en los 50 y bueno, para atrás también toda la esclavitud, como que se representaba a la gente negra de una forma chistosa pero como negativa. Se les obligaba, como por ejemplo para salir en televisión, a pintarse la cara de negro, como que era todo muy caricaturesco, se tenían que pintar una boca, ponerse guantes.
Los blancos tenían que hacer eso. Como que los negros no podían aparecer en televisión, entonces para
representar a los negros de una forma estúpida.
Los blancos parodiaban, como para decir que estaban haciendo burla de lo que ellos eran. Se pintaban la cara, los pelos,
Blackface.
eran como muy caricaturescos, burla.
Claro, era como perdón.
Encima estaban como mal pintados porque se le veía como, se le notaba la pintura así como rayas. ¿Para los blancos o los negros?
Los blancos.
Los blancos parodiaban a los negros.
Los blancos parodiaban a los negros.
Porque ellos no podían aparecer en televisión.
Why? Yeah, the white people also, but you also when the white people did it, they were. It's hard to say. They were making fun of black people, but at the same time, in their twisted, weird way, they were trying to show their appreciation for all of the shit they stole and brought to light. Most of the dances that you saw back then, you know, the Fred Astaire's, the all of these people, they all got their styles from watching black people in the South. A lot of people, Louisiana, Texas coming up, that were going, they would, you know, they would go down, watch their movements, and then learn, and then take them on stage.
Dice que a la vez como que se burlaba y se minimizaba, pero también había como una apreciación porque los bailarines famosos de ese momento, como por ejemplo Fred Astaire, sacaban sus movimientos de bailarines negros. Como que hay algo medio retorcido ahí de burlarse y a la vez agarrar lo que está bueno, lo que está cool y apropiarse. Y lo que venía con esto es que, bueno, a Don Cornelius, el host de Soul Train, el locking le recordaba esa forma caricaturesca de mostrar a la gente negra que en ese momento, en los 70, era como que se estaba empezando a mostrar otra cara y otro protagonismo por fuera de esto caricaturesco, como que empezaron a tener otro lugar, entonces le enojaba que el locking era como volver a esta cosa chistosa y ridícula.
So, to go back, this is very important. We have to remember that. So, there's already tension between Don Cornelius and Don Campbell. And Don Campbell and Demeter Joe are partners. They always win all the contests. And so you gotta remember that this is 1971, right? October 1971 is when Soul Train is starting. No, October 72 it's starting in LA, but in 71 it was already in Chicago, right? So you have Don matched up with Demeter. You have Scooby, who's also there coming in, but Scooby is as powerful as Don, but just different. Then you have Greg that's coming in. You have Fluky, Shab, and Penguin, and Shab came way later in 73. So you have to remember that Don, he's still going in the clubs, right? And Scooby learned from Don in 70, you know, before. So this is what's important, because nobody had yet copied the movement from Don. And Scooby just happened to walk in the club Scooby's story. He's running away from the twins, which were two gang members. I mean, you'll meet Scooby, he can tell you the story. And from high school, and Scooby was also not a dancer. He didn't know how to do soul dance. So when he saw Don in the club, he was hiding. He saw this amazing person, the only man doing something with the arms. Everybody's doing soul dance. And he was like, I have to learn this, right? So he kept going to the same club over and over again just to learn what Don was doing by copying. He didn't meet Don yet, he's just trying to copy. So, yeah.
Entonces, he met in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Entonces conoce, primero tenemos que recordar de que el primero que aprendió locking fue Scooby-Doo. En la historia que cuenta Scooby-Doo dice de que él en verdad estaba en el club y se estaba escondiendo de unos pandilleros. How was the name of the gang?
It's two twins. There was two twins. I don't know the name of the gang, but it was two twins.
Okay, eran dos mellizos de que eran pandilleros y él se estaba escondiendo de ellos y miró estaba escondiéndose en el club y miró a alguien en el club bailando solte con los brazos, porque todos bailaban soul dance con el cuerpo y había solte uno que estaba bailando con los brazos, haciendo todos esos movimientos y le re sorprendió, como que quedó en shock y empezó a ir a todos los días o many times, muchas veces fue al mismo boliche buscando ese tipo, a ese hombre maravilloso que baila con los brazos y le copiaba los movimientos. Todavía no había conocido a Don Campbell en ese momento. Él solamente lo había visto y copiado los movimientos.
¿En qué año?
Es en los 70.
¿Qué años tenían ellos?
Scooby lo conoció en el 70.
No, pero
How old was Scooby?
Scooby was about 19, going on 20. Don was, Don was born in 51, so 70. So you're taking 71, he would have been, so Don was 19, and Scooby was about 1 year behind, right? They're not supposed to be in the clubs, but in those days, when you're in Watts, when you're in these clubs, I mean, you know, you go by the back door, if you know the security guard, you can go in, you know, if you're old enough. And they're big guys. I mean, they're Don was close to 6 foot. Scooby is 6'2", big man, you know. So, and so that's what's important is that in 70, Don is already doing at least 5 things, five moves, 5 fundamentals. He doesn't have them all. Scooby says he saw the point. He saw, of course, the lock was the first. He saw the wrist roll, because Don, every time he dropped his hat, he would, you know, do this, grab the hat. And then he saw the double, of course, but, you know, and he would snap his finger. But that was it. You know, the back club didn't come yet, all of these other things didn't come yet. So you have to understand, Scooby is just trying to copy 4 or 5 things. And this is 1970. And the lockers came in 1973. So you gotta understand that that's a 6-month period. In terms of that time, is a long time. Like like things change real quickly. 6 months, there's already, you know, Don has already created something. Then the next year, if people say, oh, we were the first lockers before Don, and we were the first group before Don, I'm like, it's impossible, because he wasn't even on Soul Train yet. He didn't become mainstream. You must have been in the club with him, and you're 10 years younger. Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Dice de que, bueno, primero todo, él tenía 19, no, o sea, Scooby tenía 18 y Don tenía 19. O sea, no era legal que él esté ahí. En verdad, vos te puedes entrar al club, dice que en The Watts, en el lugar de la zona de Watts. Where is The Watts?
Watts?
It's
Well, they were all like, this was like the ghetto in Los Angeles. Watts. If you like watch the movie Watts Facts, and it's just not Watts, there's many other places where they went, right? But Watts was like it was kind of like the Bronx, you know, of dance. Watts was where everybody was going, you know, a lot of people were from that area. A lot of like Black Americans, especially those who built the train tracks for people to travel, they were all in Watts, and that city is known for that, right? So if you see the documentary Watts Tax, you understand a lot more about the history and especially the riot. That's another thing.
Dice de que The Watts es como la parte del gueto. ¿Por qué? Que ahí se juntaba mucha comunidad negra. ¿Por qué? Porque estaban haciendo los railroads, las vías de tren. Entonces mucha gente gente trabajadora, ¿entendés? Y eso es The Watts, ¿no? Entonces yo estaba explicando de que en The Watts vos podías entrar a los clubs si vos conocías al tipo de la puerta, ¿entendés? Entonces dice de que también de que Scooby-Doo veía de que cuando él lo vio en los 70, él solamente vio 5 movimientos, 4 movimientos. Y dice de que cualquier persona que diga de que estaba haciendo la danza antes de tiempo era imposible, porque era muy rápido el desarrollo que tuvo, y acuérdense de que recién se viralizó. When went crazy, it was 73?
72 is when Soul Train.
Soul Train was October 72, was when Soul Train opened in LA, I think. Is it 72, 71, October 72, October 71.
Soul Train?
In LA. I'm not sure.
71, because
71,
Harlem came
right?
in 72,
Yeah.
and I think it had already been going on.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. It's maybe October 71. Don was there, but everybody started going. So by 72, you already had Demita, because Demita was auditioning people with Pat Brown. And you gotta understand that they would audition in Doctor's Park in LA, the dancers. So Demita was the one that went to say, hey Don, you gotta come to this audition in the park. Hey Scooby, you gotta come. Demita is a very important person because Pat Brown was at that time working for Dawn Cornelius, and she was like auditioning dancers, few knew how to dance. So Dawn was already in the club dancing like full out. So, but we're in 71, but he created this thing in 70. So imagine already in 71, almost nearing 72, he's always at the height of his game. And in those days, there was one man that was bigger or as big as Don, but that was not a locker. His name was Perry Brown. And Perry Brown was the biggest rival to Don Campbell, because Perry Brown, and he's still alive, so we hope to have an interview with him. But Perry Brown would always do the contest. So you gotta remember, now you have Soul Train, now you have clubs, now you have contests and clubs, where the contests are not locking contests, they're all dance types contests, like Lindy Hop, salsa, this, disco, everybody's like doing the best, and they're choosing the best dancers, right? And so people at that time, Don would win all the contests. But the thing is, he's not a Soul Train dancer, like he doesn't, Perry Brown was. So right before, the lockers were created, Don already had the Campbell lockers and the Campbell lock dancers. He did a contest. And the reason why Scooby and Don got close at the beginning is because Scooby had a car. And Don always needed a ride to the next club. So Scooby was driving Don around, being with Don, learning from Don. So that's an important part.
So, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So, sí. Él dice de que, bueno, oficialmente abrió Soul Train el 71 de octubre, 1971, en octubre de 1971 abre Soul Train en Los Ángeles. Y dice de que ahí... Y dice de que, acuérdense que 71-72, Don Campbell estaba en el más high, estaba en su más high level de su estado más alto. Y decía de que...
He's winning.
Que él, claro, que
Mencionó como lo rápido que evolucionó en su danza, porque de un año para el otro ya estaba como resarpado en lo que hacía. Y antes de que se formara el grupo oficialmente de los Lockers, ya como que...
Decía de que también que Damita Joe Freeman estaba audicionando bailarines. Damita Joe Freeman ya era una bailarina muy talentosa de Soul Train y estaba audicionando en Duncan Park. Y también ella veía lo que Damita Joe Freeman knew Don Campbell because he was winning many battles too.
No, Damita Joe Freeman knew Don Campbell because they're at this point in 71, 72, they're all in the clubs together. Don has now created the dance already. Damita is like his partner in clubs before Soul Train, way before Soul Train.
Entonces Damita en verdad lo conoce a Don Campbell porque ya eran pareja bailando en los clubs antes de Soul Train. Así como lo conoció.
Nombró algo del auto también.
Y también lo del auto. En
verdad una cosa para con todo el respeto y el amor del mundo, ¿no? Capaz que traduzcan primero y después le tenés que hacer una pregunta particular, algún detalle de cómo fue, porque si no te da la mente para retener todo lo que dice y se pierde información para por lo menos para mí que no tengo ni idea de inglés.
Dale. Okay. Lo que pasa es que para conectarlo me cuesta conectarlo cuando hay blancos entre claro. Pero sí.
Lo importante de esa historia de Damita es que ella ya tenía contactos en el ambiente. Entonces como que ella ya contrataba bailarines, los ponía a audicionar, como por giras, videoclips, es como que ella fue una persona muy importante porque empezó a verlos en los clubes bailando y como que ella estaba full out, ella bailaba con todo, era su mejor momento, entonces como ella tuvo la chance de verlo y empezar a llamarlo para audiciones, a muchos bailarines que conocía, pero así se conocieron y empezó a bailar con él.
Sí. Y lo del auto es así. Lo que dijo es de que la relación al principio la relación entre Don Campbell y Scooby-Doo es de que Scooby-Doo quería aprender locking y entonces Don Campbell dijo, bueno, te puedo enseñar, pero vos me vas a tener que llevar, vos me tenés que llevar de boliche a boliche en el auto, como es un intercambio, es un exchange.
Mencionó también un rival, ¿cómo leímos? Que Don tenía un rival que se llamaba Perry Brown, que conoció en muchos concursos de baile que iban, que en realidad no era de danzas sociales, era como de cualquier estilo. Y nada, como que eran rivales ahí en esos concursos.
Eran rivales porque Don Campbell hacía locking, pero Perry Brown era el mejor haciendo soul dance. Sí.
¿Este bailarín estaba en Soul Train también? ¿Este rival estaba en Soul Train también?
¿Cómo? So this rival was in Soul Train too, right? Perry Brown también está. Así que lo perdió la voz.
So, okay. Why I tell you this story is because it's very important. You understand why there was a disconnect eventually. You gotta see Scooby, very powerful hawker too in 72. Now, what happens is Perry Brown and Don do a contest. And for the first time, and Scooby's there sitting in the audience, Don loses the contest against Perry Brown. So, at this point, and this is a story that I learned from Scooby. Scooby is making a joke. He says, the king is dead. Don never forgave him. He was so angry at Scooby that he left, because Don, was very, like all dancers at that time, they all had egos, right? And Don was like angry because for Don, everybody, you gotta understand, everybody was copying Don. Don, this is why at the end he was wearing a bowler hat, because at the beginning he was wearing an Applejack, And then everybody started wearing an Applejack. Then he put suspenders. Everybody's wearing suspenders. Then he put striped socks. Everybody's wearing striped socks. So he would get angry and tell his mom, like, Mom, I hate it. They're all copying me. And his mom told him, listen, you should be happy. It's like, what is like when you say somebody that's imitating, it's flattery. It's flattery. Like it's because they love you. But he did not like that. So every time he switched his hat, put a bowler hat. He switched something else. So Don was very proud of his dance because he told me every time he went into a contest, he tried to do whatever he did plus 150. A higher every time, further every time, longer. And so for him it was important because all of the other lockers at this point, there's Greg Campbell Lock coming up, and he was named Campbell Lock Jr. because he imitates Don so much that Demetra Joe said, I'm gonna call you Campbell Lock Jr. And that also created problems in the future.
Bueno, entonces cuenta sobre la rivalidad un poquitito de la rivalidad entre Perry Brown y Don Campbell. Don Campbell ganaba todas las batallas las ganaba Don Campbell. Hasta que un momento está Scooby-Doo sentado y ve una batalla en donde se encuentra Perry Brown y Don Campbell y Don Campbell pierde. Entonces Scooby-Doo se hacía una broma y dice, el rey murió. Y Don Campbell nunca lo perdonó por eso.
No.
Y dijo como que Don Campbell estaba re enojado, estaba como re caliente porque perdió, y también estaba re enojado porque él decía, no, ellos están haciendo mi danza, ¿entendés? Como que ella da ejemplos, como que él se ponía un gorro, todos se ponían el mismo gorro. Se ponían una camiseta, todos se ponían la misma camiseta. Él se ponía unos pantalones, todos se ponían los mismos pantalones. Y decía, mamá, todos me están copiando, lo odio. ¿Sí? ¿Dijo eso? Mamá, me están copiando. Y la mamá le dijo como, pero Don, tenés que sentirte bien, porque es una forma de flattering, como es una forma de halago, como que te están halagando, ¿entendés? Pero él estaba muy enojado por eso. Y también...
Para terminar, primero, no sé si te quedan más cosas para...
Sí, porque también habló sobre Greg, porque dice de que Greg era tan parecido a Don Campbell que antes de que se llame Greg Campbell Lock Jr., Gamita Joe Freeman le puso ese nombre, porque era tan parecido a Don Campbell que le dijo, te voy a llamar a vos Campbell Lock Jr. Sí.
Y eso trajo problemas a futuro.
Y eso trajo problemas en el futuro.
El contexto de las batallas, ¿qué eran también?
Eran concursos de baile.
Concursos de baile.
No batallas callejeras.
No,
Era
concursos
como
de baile.
salón, tipo,
Ahí va,
¿viste?
ahí va.
The contest were with a partner?
No, just one person. So it could be like a disco couple against a locker against a soul dancer. It was just the best dancer that would win. And the crowd would judge often, or sometimes they had judges. And you gotta understand that in those times, they were not black-owned club, they were white-owned club. So there was all types of white people in there, and the black people would ride their cars into all the clubs to win the contest, to make their money to pay their rent, because in those days they would win either $25, $100, $50. That was a lot of money 50 years ago.
Dice que, recuerda, él preguntó sobre las competencias, ¿no? Y ella dijo, no, las competencias o los concursos era de una persona y era de cualquier estilo, cualquier tipo de música, puede ser un locker con un soul dancer, etc. Y decía de que, acuérdense de que, los jurados eran o el público o a veces ponían a algunos jurados.
¿A quién?
Algunos, ponían a algunas personas. Y acuérdense de que, y también dice, acuérdense que los clubs los dueños eran gente blanca. Entonces, ¿Cómo? No, o sea, ellos, siempre la gente que batallaba, que era gente negra que quería ganar plata, iba y batallaba para poder pagar la renta de la casa. Entonces iban ahí y batallaban y ganaban $10, $15, $25. Entonces iban a todos los clubes batallando así para poder
More
pagar.
like 50 and 100. 25 sometimes, but it was like big prices.
No, antes, bueno, dijo, está bien, 20, no siempre, pero más que nada, o sea, eran precios, eran altos premios, 120 dólares, algo así.
We didn't have battles. It was contests in clubs, always in clubs. So
O sea, en la noche.
at this point, all the lockers are there. I think I can push it forward a little bit. Don is winning everything, so all the other lockers are like going, and you see Don, Scooby's car, and you see Don with Scooby. They're like, no, we're gonna go to the other club because we're not winning this money here if we have to go. And this is a story that I learned from Shabadoo too. Shabadoo was like, if you saw, because eventually Don had a car, but if you saw the person that would drive him and you saw that car in the parking lot, you knew not to go to that contest because you would for sure lose, right?
Los otros lockers.
Yeah.
Los otros lockers cuando iban a estos concursos, ya cuando veían que estaba el auto de Don estacionado, decían, no, a este no entramos porque seguro perdemos, porque Don ganaba todo.
Inclusive ya va a gustar, ¿no?
Yeah.
¿Shabadoo?
Shabadoo is the
Inclusive
one.
llamado.
Shabadoo told me this story.
Shabadoo, amongst many other people, told me the story. When you talk to the pioneers, talk to Shabadoo, you talk to Greg, you talk to Scooby, you talk to Alpha, Fluky, Demira, anybody from that generation, they tell you, if you know Don was in that club, even Luz Caboose, even all of them guys, they're like, we're going to the next club. And this is the reason why a lot of white, I'm not being racist, guys. The Caucasian lockers that started being good, like they were doing more techniques, they weren't so full. They started battling in Orange County or in the Valley. So they got away from the hood to win the contest other places and create or do whatever and go into battle. So then they would start battling, and they created this new kind of. It wasn't new, but it was like, okay, well, we're gonna perfect, choreography of locking. And so you have all the other ones that were also seeing the lockers trying to do their own thing in, the suburban areas. The reason why you have this side and this side, chain reaction, who removed the essence, they call this the break instead of the lock, and they call this up throwbacks. And they were teaching for many, many, many years in LA. So you had two sides. So this is why the Valley, try to say our way is better because it's cleaner, and that created more drama for the future.
Dice de que bueno, en estos temas de los concursos, bueno, si ustedes quieren saber más de esa información, bueno, le tienen que preguntar a Scooby-Doo, a Damita, a Shabadoo, o sea, le tienes que preguntar a ellos. Y ellos siempre te van a decir, si ven el auto de Don Campbell, o el de Don Campbell o de Scooby-Doo, no vayan a ese club, no vayan, van a perder seguramente. Entonces, lo que...
más personas también ahí.
Que dice, ahora te
Dio
explico.
ejemplos de más de
Dice
a
de
cualquier
que-
persona que le preguntaste decía que perdía.
Sí, a cualquier persona. Y dice entonces...
A cualquiera.
Cualquiera, todos te decían eso. Hasta Luz Caboose también decía como que no, si vos ves el auto no vayas ahí. Entonces, pero también esa idea también lo tomó otro grupo de personas. La gente dice no quiero ser racista, I don't want to be racist, no quiero ser racista. La gente caucásica que estaban mejorando en el locking, pero le sacaban el soul dentro del locking, le sacaban la esencia del locking, que dice, y lo creaban más coreográfico, lo querían limpiar, ¿entendés? Querían creían de que tenía que limpiarse, que eso es lo que ella decía. Y ellos competían, no competían en el gueto, ellos competían en el baile o Orange County. Ellos o batallaban en Orange County o en baile, no se metían en el gueto en donde están ahí. Ellos se metían en otro.
Ahora gente blanca.
Sí. Para poder ganar algo. Y ahí,
So this is why when you see the Orange County, like those people that come from that suburb or even in the valley, and those with the way they bounce, like Rerun Penguin was also often in Orange County, Luz Caboose, Richie Rich, like all of these people, all of the Anthony Thomas, they have that.
Always
Bounce, bounce, bounce. And this is why you can see the difference between the original lockers and then the hybrid form that it took for many lockers. That was, they made their money too, but it was like two parallel roads and one was like, but it created a lot of tension in the community back then. So what happened is eventually,
Oh, you want to say that?
sí, lo que pasó es que se crearon como dos caminos diferentes. Estaban los que hacían el locking como los lockers y después estaban estas personas de que llamaban esto de break, en vez de lock lo llamaban break, esto lo llamaban throwback, en vez de up lo llamaban throwback. Y la razón por la que ellos se puede notar una inspiración de Rerun es porque Rerun estaba a veces en Orange County o estaban a veces en The Valley, por eso es de que tienen influencia. Y el bounce ese que tiene es por esa razón también, porque tienen ese bounce es diferente a como lo hacen los locos. Ellos están explicando eso.
and they don't stop.
Y no hacen
And
stop.
they never stop.
No hay stop.
Todo el tiempo.
Hi.
Penguin was one of them.
Ah,
Penguin is one of
yes,
Hi.
Penguin. Fred Rerun.
them. Penguin always
He always bounce.
Yeah.
But that was his style.
Sí,
Siempre he tenido una duda como que en el tiempo de la creación de login. Hace unos años tuvimos un conversatorio virtual, obviamente por conocer tipo la historia de Val, con Richie Rich, y nos mencionó nombres de steps. Ejemplo, El Point, 5 Point, etc. Y uno, por ejemplo, que me quedó la curiosidad es que sí mencionó un nombre de un step, pero de repente me pusieron un nombre o no existía simplemente como el Irresent. Y quería saber, porque yo había visto ya López hacerlo sin darle un nombre. Quiero saber si es que ha habido, qué situaciones ha habido de eso, de que veían un nombre de algo que llegaba a ellos, ya lo habían ejecutado, de repente no tenían un nombre, pero ya lo habían visto por otro lado, que habían puesto eso.
Okay, so his question is, he was saying that he had like this with a chat, with a forum, with someone from Richie Rich about they were talking about the moves that they created. Like,
style.
I mean, no, not really. I mean, no, it's the wrong way of saying like
No, but they say that.
They say that. So they say the 5 point, you know.
That he created.
That yeah, something like that. So controversial. Yeah, I know. So, but he wants to ask, for example, ¿cómo se llama el movimiento que le? Reset, ¿es así? Irresent.
La pose en el aire.
Okay, so Richie said that they put a name on this move, but the lockers didn't put a name on this move. Y tu pregunta es?
O sea, esos movimientos
Those
van de
moves?
manera espontánea.
Those
Hay
spontaneous
muchos
moves?
que los locos ya hacían.
Those moves were already from the lockers.
Y de repente algún contexto que nos pudiera contar de situaciones que se han presentado donde pasaba eso, de que hacían un movimiento y le daban el nombre por otro lado, pero
Okay.
ya los locos de sí lo hacían.
Okay,
Pero
so
sin ningún
how many cases there is that there's like the lockers already made a move but didn't name the move, but other groups wanted to, put a name on it.
Es como el pez.
All the time. This happens often. But here's the situation. Richie Rich did not create the points. Don did. If he made a variation, if tomorrow you guys make a variation of Don's things, are you gonna say you created the chocolate point? It's like or did you create based on something that was already created, right? It was already created. The jumps that you did, bam. Fluky was already jumping like that. So, but they did like this weird, you know? But they put a name to it because, you know why they put a name to it? Because they didn't go ask, they didn't train, they didn't learn from them. They just look and say, oh, they do this. Instead of asking permission, what is this called? What's the name of this? We did this, and maybe the lockers did not organize everything yet, but it was being organized, right? But what they did is they appropriated the dance. And then, like a lot of people, they added names to the moves. But the moves Don has already created all of them. So how are you gonna say you created in a live, I saw the live, the 5-star point, where it's basically, bah, 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 bah. It's a point that Don created. So, and you're gonna say you created something. So now, the new generation think that you're important. Like that Richie Rich is important in the history, but he's not important to the history of the essence of locking, right? And so Richie Rich, although not gonna take anything away from him, he taught many students, but Richie Rich always says, I don't like when people stop, don't stop, just keep dancing. The stop is the most important key in locking. Stop is everywhere in the 8 things, right? So if he says don't stop, and Don says, and Greg used to have a shirt that says, if you don't stop, you're not locking. So, and you have a Caucasian man that is 10, 15 years younger than the pioneers, or maybe 10 years, telling you that it's not important to stop.
Okay. So, entonces lo que pasa es, primero te dice, ¿cómo vas a decir que creás algo que ya fue creado? Es porque vos, dice, la razón es porque ellos no iban a preguntar, no podían bajar y ir a preguntar a claro, de cómo se llama, cómo se hace, entonces ellos le pusieron el nombre. Entonces le ponen un nombre. Entonces también dice de que Richie Rich, cuando enseña, no le gusta que hagas el stop. Y dice, pero ¿cómo no vas a hacer el stop? El stop es uno de los partes más importantes del locking.
El más
importante.
Es el más importante.
The most, yeah.
Y dice que tiene una camiseta que dice, si no estás haciendo, no tienes un stop, no estás haciendo locking. No estás haciendo locking.
Habla también de que podés crear variaciones.
Habló de que lo que él hacía era crear variaciones. Ahí dio el ejemplo de Choco Point.
Choco up.
Pero eso, que hagas variaciones no significa que estás creando un paso.
I have a question.
Hablaste un montón, ¿no? En cuanto a fechas, yo tengo entendido, bueno, ahora estamos hablando como del 71, 72, hasta qué año fue el auge de Lockers. Sé que hubo varias generaciones. Y tengo un bache entre los 80 y 90, como qué pasó ahí en general en la escena, y en qué momento se diseña la técnica. Si fue en 2000, esto de llevar acá, todo esto dicho y hecho por Greg, eso en cuanto a fechas. O sea, tengo un bache entre el 80 y el 90 y lo que pasó.
Ella igual dijo antes de que fue desde 2000 dijo ella,
Sí, por
que
eso.
comenzó Greg empezó a
O sea, en el
ponerle nombre.
2000.
2000 dijo ella,
Sí.
pero I'm going to ask, lo voy a preguntar igual.
Sí, exacto, no sé hacer.
So he wants to know the exact dates to when was when was locking the most popular. What happened between like the 80s and 90s, and when did Greg started to organize, put names or organize how to teach the moves?
Yeah, very good question.
Muy buena pregunta.
Very good. So, to fast forward, Don got kicked out of Soul Train because Tony Basil became the manager and started, she didn't get the lockers together yet, but she started dating Don, right?
Okay.
And she was like in show business. Her father is a conductor. Her parents were in the circus. They're like performers. She's a businesswoman. She has connections. So she asked Don, how much they paying you on Soul Train? And he's like, we're not getting paid. We get, Kentucky Fried Chicken and a Coke. And that's how they were getting paid. The dancers, they just gave them food. And Tony was so angry. So she said to Don, no, you have to ask to be paid. So Don went to Don Cornelius and said, hey, now you have to pay me. And Don Cornelius was like, you're fired. Not in that way, but that created a problem. And then so Tony was trying to come to Soul Train to talk, and he didn't want to deal with a white woman already. So Don was just like, and Tony was like trying to talk some sense into Don. Listen, Don, what you do, because Tony now is in the clubs, and she sees this man dressed in stripes. And you have to understand that Tony's past, her parents are in the circus and miming and also artists, and his father's. So she sees something that's the greatest thing she's ever seen in her life. She saw Don. She fell in love with Don, and she tried to take Don under her wing and say, hey, I'm gonna bring you on all the stage. I'm gonna make you open for Bob Hope. I'm gonna make you open the ground. Like, she had connections. So she's the reason why she started putting the lockers together.
What year was this?
That was like right before 73, like around 73, when they start coming up. 70, end of 72, they're on Soul Train. Don is still on Soul Train. Now also Demita is becoming, when he left, she's becoming Scooby's partner. So Don's pissed at that too, because Demita was very precious to Don. So now she's Scooby-Doo's partner, so more problems for the future.
So you would say
Shit,
that.
I was watching her in the clubs for a couple of years though.
Yeah. So she was in the club with Don for so many years, and now she's becoming Scooby's partner, because Don Cornelius now is mad at Don, so Don is not there anymore. So Scooby is the big man on campus now with Tyrone. There's like a few of them that Don Cornelius is like, I like them, So yeah.
Dice de que.
I'm not finished yet.
I'm sorry.
Puedes tirar un poco el cable. No, está suelto. Para tirar.
Dijo que Tony Bassi ya venía de una familia como de gente del mundo del espectáculo, los padres hacían circos, y como que tenía muchos contactos y mucha cancha. Entonces, cuando ella le preguntaba cuánto estaba cobrando en Soul, y le dijo, nada, me está dando pollo. Ella le dijo como que no, o sea, tienen que pagarte. Como que lo hizo valorar ese lado, y ellos empezaron a salir porque Tony lo vio a Donnie, se enamoró, y como que quiso, yo tengo una expresión en inglés que es como ponerlo bajo su ala, como cuidarlo en ese sentido del show, y se transformó en la manager.
Y cuando fue a decirle a Don Cornelius de que les pagara,
lo echaron.
lo echaron.
Por eso es que... Por eso es que
72.
y a Tony Bassi le re llamó la atención Don, es porque recuerden la historia de ella, de Tony Bassi. Su familia es... Su papá es un orquetrista y su familia hacen circo. Y muchos los de circo utilizan stripes, utilizan las rayas. Entonces cuando vio a Don Campbell con las rayitas, lo relacionó con su familia. Y le pareció lo más increíble del mundo. Y dijo, no, vos tenés que... How to the B-Hop? To where? I have to take you to the B-Hop.
Oh, to know Bob Hope was had shows, and then there was a lot of big entertainers, and she bring these, when she started having this idea that if I connect my people, my network, I'm gonna bring these dancers. Have to be a prime act, not backup dancers, the prime act of the show,
And that's what was her way. So for her, it was like, no, Don, you have to be paid. What you do, you have to. So it was her that, in a way, made Don ask Don Cornelius for the money, and Don Cornelius found that reason. It was a way to squeeze Don out, you know.
Tony Bassi tenía una visión cuando además de enamorarse de Don Campbell, tenía una visión y dijo, tengo que llevarlo a los shows más grandes, tengo que utilizar mis conexiones para que no sean bailarines de atrás, que sean el acto principal. Esa era la visión de ella. Ella por eso le dijo a Don que empiece a cobrar por lo que hacía.
And so now Don is gone. Now you have Scooby. Now Tony Basil's organizing auditions for the lockers. Scooby lives in an apartment. Don is mad at Scooby now, right? Scooby has a job and he works at a pizza place. And all of a sudden, Greg lives with Scooby. Shabadoo is living with Scooby. And Fluky is living with Scooby. Because he's taking care of them. So he got them jobs at the pizza place, right? And at this point, they're learning from Scooby the technique. Because Scooby is not teaching, he's just showing. Well, Don is doing this. So Shabadoo is sitting on Scooby's bed. And I know the story from both Shabadoo and Scooby, trying to understand how to do the wrist roll. So Shabadoo is like, show me that wrist rolling thing, that wrist rolling. So Shabadoo is putting names, but Don did not name it wrist roll. Shabadoo was just asking Scooby, show me how to do that wrist roll thing, because he couldn't do it. Remember that Shabadoo was the last one to join the lockers. So at this point, they're auditioning. So Greg is already with Tony Basil, talking with Don. Fluky is there. Nobody's telling Scooby that they're auditioning, yet they live in their house, in his house. So Don was mad at Scooby. So Tony Basil's story is that, well, Scooby was always late because he was never there. But Scooby was busy. He had a job, right? So there's many distortion of the story.
Yeah. So entonces ella quiere organizar un grupo. Entonces cuando Don le pide a Don Cornelius, Don Cornelius lo echa a Don Campbell, y entonces ella ya está haciendo como un grupo. Entonces Don Campbell primero haciendo audiciones, abre audiciones para los otros lockers.
And this is 73 because Shabadoo moved from Chicago to LA in 73.
Y esto es el año 73. Bueno, entonces empezó a hablar sobre Scooby. Lo que pasó después de que Don Campbell se va de Soul Train, Scooby-Doo se vuelve la pareja de baile de Damita Joe Freeman, y eso Don le hizo enojar mucho. Otra cosa más de Don, de Scooby, disculpa. otra cosa de Scooby trabajaba en un lugar de pizzería y él tenía su alquiler y él trabajaba. Y en su casa se quedaba viviendo Greg, Shabadoo y Fluky Luke. Vivían en su casa y él los intentaba que ellos también trabajen en la pizzería, que se consigan el trabajo en la pizzería también. ¿Cómo se llama?
They're auditioning for the lockers.
Sí, entonces empezaron a hacer audiciones para The Lockers y
Tony Basil's auditioning.
Yes.
But they already know that they're going in.
O sea,
as the
que
lockers.
llegaron por Scooby-Doo el resto.
Claro, o sea,
And Scooby-Doo is teaching, showing them how to lock,
entonces,
do what Don does.
entonces ellos, los chicos, tanto Fluky Luke, Greg y Shabadoo querían audicionar, pero ellos estaban aprendiendo el locking con Scooby-Doo, o sea, con el que le estaba dando la casa.
They share a session in the house.
Pero Scooby-Doo no sabía que había audiciones. O sea, los que querían audicionar estaban aprendiendo el locking con él, pero él ni siquiera sabía que había audiciones porque
estaban peleados
con Don.
O sea, Don Campbell se puso celoso por el hecho de que
Estaba con Damita
fue
Joffrey.
pareja de Damita.
Y también cuenta de que contó la historia
Ahí va, de Luis Roll.
que el nombre se lo pone Shabadoo.
Porque le pregunta cómo se hace.
Porque fue el último en entrar,
Claro.
el que menos sabía. Entonces le dice como, show me that wrist rolling thing, como, mostrame esa cosa del giro de muñeca. Y él le queda
Y dice que acuérdense de que Shabadoo se movió de que Shabadoo se movió de Chicago a Los Ángeles en el 73. Entonces él fue el último en quedarse en la casa de Scooby-Doo. Entonces es ahí donde pasó lo que contó.
This all happens during the time you were
In my diapers.
Dice de que todo esto estaba pasando mientras ella estaba todavía en pañales.
Yo tengo una pregunta.
But I hear the story from Scooby. Scooby is like my uncle when he comes to my house. I heard the story from Tony Basil. I heard the story from Don. I heard the different version of everyone. And Shabadoo too told me the story. So I know all the stories, and the reason is Don did not want Scooby to be in the show, in the lockers, right? But Scooby is the best locker after Don. Better than Greg, better than everyone, right? But there's competition. So Don was like, what Scooby says, like Don did not like me because of what I said. The king is dead from that moment, and because of a girl thing, Damita Joe, and there was another girlfriend that Scooby was dating, that Don was mad, and he walked in on them. Like that's another story, right? Girl problems.
Primero tronco. Entonces dice de que el problema entre Don Campbell y Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo lo cuenta de esta forma, dice que fueron tres problemas. Fue uno, que Damita Joe Freeman empieza a bailar con él. Segundo es porque un tema de una que Scooby estaba saliendo con una chica y Don no le gustaba, como que se reenojó porque estaba saliendo con esa chica.
Porque a Don le gustaba esa chica.
The king is dead.
¿Cómo?
Y lo del chiste del rey está muerto.
Y también por el chiste del rey está muerto, como que le hizo, todavía estaba caliente. Eso es lo que Scooby-Doo dice.
Tony Basil, her version is, well, he didn't show up on time, and he was never on time to anything, so he wasn't professional enough to be in the lockers.
Dice que Tony Basil no decía que esa era la razón. Tony Basil decía de que era porque Scooby-Doo no llegaba en tiempo y no le parecía profesional llegar tarde.
But he had a job.
No, Scooby-Doo. ¿Entendés?
Llegaba tarde a la clase.
Porque
Scooby-Doo Don Campbell.
No, es así. Porque
yo sé que Don Campbell está enojado por eso.
No. Scooby-Doo está explicando por qué de que lo estaban como alienando a él y no le estaban permitiendo entrar. ¿Entendés? Entonces él dice que son por estas 3 razones. Pero dice Tony Benson dice que no, es porque vos llegabas tarde y no es profesional hacer eso. Eso es lo que
She also said she was trying to find 7 different lockers, and that Scooby-Doo was the same size as Dawn, dance as powerful as Dawn, and it would look too much alike.
Dice que también Tony Benson también decía de que quería 7 lockers diferentes. Scooby-Doo era de casi de la misma altura, bailaba tan potente como Don Campbell y era demasiado poderoso, entonces como que
Too powerful.
demasiado poderoso.
If you take class with Scooby, you understand.
Si tomas clases con Scooby-Doo lo van a entender.
¿Cuánto tiempo estuvieron como en esa riña?
From how long they had a fight?
Oh, it lasted for a long time. But this is to answer this question. So now the group is formed, and Shabadoo is the last one to go in after Fred rerun. Big win. Scooby-Doo is at his house, watch TV, sees the lockers on TV for the first time, and he's like, how come I'm not there? Nobody told me that they're gonna perform. I don't remember which show it was. Don't quote me on that. But he sees a performance of the lockers and he's like angry. He's sad. No, he's not. He's sad, right? This is why Scooby disappeared. But we thought Scooby was dead for 30 years. But before that, he was still sad, but he kept going. So Scooby, Perry Brown, Demita Joe, Pat Davis, and other girls, they formed another group that went to Japan. It's called Something Special. They created a group called Something Special. Demita Joe did not end up in the group because there was like some animosity with another girl, not Pat Davis. But Perry Brown, Scooby-Doo, there was I don't know who else, but Pat Davis and some other people, they went with a band, a full band. They went to perform in Japan in '76.
Is this the one where Tyrone went to?
I think it might have, I don't know, I think it's later on. But it was called Something Special. So you have Scooby and Perry Brown and all of these, and Pat Davis, who Pat Davis was on Soul Train. She was in the Fly Girls, the Butterfly Girls, Pat Davis, Demita Joe, and there's another, I can't remember the other girl's name. But these women were really powerful. And so you're talking 73, so the lockers are performing everywhere. Scooby is sad, but then he gets a gig. He goes all the way to Japan with Perry Brown, who is like Don's, the nemesis, right? So they're the first one to bring a show with locking, and it was dancing, it was Soul Train, it was singing out to Japan in '76, right? So in the meantime, the lockers do their first performance on Soul Train as a paid act, like James Brown, 75, right? But they came back later. Between 73 and 76, I mean, there's still Tony Gogo dancing there, Fluking Luke is still on Soul Train, even like Scooby was still on Soul Train, because that was a gig, even though the lockers are all going. And then there was all the name, they were called the Camelot dancers, or the Camelockers, and because of the record that Don created, that Don recorded, they lost the rights to the name Camelot. So that's why Tony Basil, she told Don, either you stay and we can't go on tour with, I can't remember who it is, that they were going on tour with a big act, with a big, I don't know if it wasn't Bob, it was somebody else. And
Frank Sinatra, right?
Frank Sinatra, exactly. You know this is, so Frank Sinatra had a tour, and the Lockers were gonna open for Frank Sinatra. If Don had to fight to keep his name, he would have to stay in court and fight to keep the name and spend a lot of money. So Tony Basil was like, no, like, because she got the letters from the lawyers. She's like, if we change the names to the Lockers, we're good. So that's the next big story where there was a break between Tony Basil and Don in the future, because Don thought that she made that up, but it's I don't know. The wife, the one that knows the whole truth and nothing but the truth, is Don's wife, and she's not telling us yet.
Okay.
Bueno, primero dijo que un día Julio. ¿Qué pasó?
Son los 80 y los 90. Son los 80 y los 90.
Faltan los 80 y los 90.
Ya, pero es que gracias.
Fast.
5 minutes.
Okay.
Dice que Scooby-Doo vio en la tele a The Lockers y le puso muy triste porque él no estaba ahí, y eso hizo que desapareciera como por 30 años, pero ahí más o menos después formó otro grupo con la mitad, con Perry Brown y Pat Davis, y se fueron de gira a Japón a bailar con una banda. Something Special se llamaba.
¿Cómo?
Yeah, I remember those.
I remember. So, entonces se van gira con ellos, y después él vuelve, Scooby-Doo vuelve y sigue en Soul Train, a pesar de que ya no están más los otros, y sigue en Soul Train Scooby-Doo. Por el lado de Don Campbell, o sea, al principio los Lockers se querían llamar Campbell Lockers, de Campbell Lockers. Pero con Tony Basil dice...
O de Campbell Lock Dancers.
O de Campbell Lock Dancers. Se quería llamar así al principio el nombre del grupo. Tony Basil dice de que no pueden ponerle ese nombre porque el disco de la canción Campbell Lock tiene los derechos. Entonces, y esto Don lo duda mucho, y se cree de que esa es otra razón por la que Don y Tony Basil medio como que se separaron, porque siempre Don pensó de que había mentido. Y ella dice de que la esposa de Don sabe la verdad, pero no lo está diciendo todavía.
So that's why now Tony Basil left the Lockers eventually. They did many things. She left in 76, 75 for her record career because she was singing "Hey Mickey, you're so fine." She was a superstar. Tony Gogo came to replace her. Then also, what's his name? Penguin had his own show. What's happening? So he left too. So it was the changing of the group. Then Shabadoo, Fluky Luke, and Greg started forming more of a subgroup where they created like language and vocabulary. So Greg started to organize in the Lockers the vocabulary with Shabadoo and Fluky. And Don did not have Tony Basil, and he was not good at managing the group. So what happened is Greg and Fluky went to see Don and said, "We want Shabadoo to be our managers now." Don was like so angry that he broke everything. Like that's when Don and Shabadoo finished. Done, like because he felt like they broke his trust, right? So this is the beginning of the break of the Lockers, 76, 75, and then the music is changing, people are popping, it's electro, and so this is why, now you have Don creating a second group with Alpha, with Deputy, with Big D, with Anderson, like everybody later, there's more with Denny Terrio, who's a white man. So he's creating a second group because now he doesn't trust the other guys anymore. So it kind of, the group broke up, the original crew broke up, but Tony Gogo remained with the second group. Like some people, Slim remained with the second group. Alpha joined. Alpha was also from the first generation and moved, but he wasn't put in the lockers. Scooby went to Japan, came back, they made money. When he came back, Don was dancing for the Chippendales. Don left the Chippendales, Scooby went take his place for the Chippendales. Shaq was laughing at them, like it's a big story. And then Scooby got into too deep into the 80s. And the 80s, there's a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs, a lot of, and Scooby was good friends with, what's the name of the Playboy? You Playboy owner.
Oh, Hugh Hefner, yes.
So Scooby was staying with Hugh Hefner at his mansion for many, many years. And so Scooby disappeared. He was around all these famous actresses. But the thing is, Scooby was so in pain that he wasn't put into the lockers, that after that, it was downhill for him. He decided, I'm never gonna lock, and he disappeared. He just didn't say to nobody that he was a dancer. He left. We all thought he was dead. Don was angry at Scooby. Don was angry at Tony Basil. Don was angry at Shabadoo, at Greg, at this. And this is when we are coming in the 90s. We're coming to learn, late 90s. And everybody's fighting. Everybody's fighting. And we are like, Don, can you teach me locking? No, that's not locking. Then we go to see Greg, and Greg's like, accurate point, that's a man. But the thing is that we had also the Electric Boogaloo's, E.B. Skeet, who was training with Greg. Sugar Pop was training with Greg. Sundance was always asking Greg's question. So we had information. And this is why eventually we created the locking camp for Greg in Las Vegas, the one that I organized. All right, and so these stories is like all the accumulation, and it's not over. I have more to tell, but we have to leave. But this is why the politics started. All the teachers, different styles, different foundation, different fundamentals.
Okay. Entonces.
No, yo no me voy feliz.
Dice que bueno, empieza porque vos querés saber el auge y también su caída. Su caída fue 75-76. Comienza con que empieza Rerun, Penguin empieza a tener su propio show en What's Happening, como Rerun. Y después Tony Basil está con su music video, Mickey You're So Fine, la canción de Mickey. Y entonces se empiezan ya a empezar a separar. Ya había un tema entre Tony Basil y Don, y ya como que Tony Basil se fue.
Sí, sí.
Entonces vino Tony Gogo como a suplantar a Tony Basil.
¿Y qué pasó con Shabadoo? Se peleó también.
No, lo que pasó fue esto, fue de que a ver,
Shabadoo,
Shabadoo, Greg y Fluky empezaron a comenzar su propio grupo, por un lado, y Greg y Fluky se acercan a Don Camel y le dicen, Shabadoo va a ser nuestro nuevo manager. Y Don Camel no le gustó para nada y cortó con todo, lo destruyó completamente.
Ahí va. Entonces se terminó de separar el grupo.
Se termina de separar el grupo. Y después, como Don Campbell ya no confía ni en Scooby-Doo, no confía en Tony, no confía en Shabadoo, él quiere comenzar un nuevo grupo. Y a Greg tampoco lo confía. Entonces él comienza su propio nuevo grupo con The Deputy, Alpha Omega Anderson, Big D, Tony Gogo,
Denny Terrio.
Danny Terrio.
Yeah. I don't remember the woman's name. It wasn't Ana Sanchez yet. It was somebody else. Lollipop came later, another.
Sí, y dice de que después,
70s, late 70s.
dice que después en el comienza los no, pero un poquitito antes de los 80, Don Campbell, o sea, ahora que Scooby-Doo sigue hablando en Soul Train, y después Scooby-Doo sustituye a Don Campbell, de que Don Campbell estaba en un show que se llama Chip and Dale. Chip and Dale, ¿conocen a Chip and Dale? Las ardillitas. Bueno, estaba en un show de Chip and Dale, Don Campbell, y cuando lo sacan a Don Campbell, lo ponen a Scooby-Doo para sustituirlo en el show de Chip and Dale. Y Shabba-Doo se caga de risa de ellos. Eso también. Porque es un show como de ardillitas, ¿viste? Y después de eso, lo que ella cuenta es de que Scooby-Doo estaba tan dolorido de no haber estado en los The Lockers, de que empieza a juntarse con un vivo, y lo que saben es que se juntaba con un vivo y después dejó de bailar completamente. Dijo, yo ya no voy a bailar más Loki.
Dijo que empezó a tomar también.
Y dijo que también en los 80 empezó a tomar.
And then he went to live with Hugh Hefner in the Playboy Mansion.
Todo esto a fines de
Hugh Hefner played.
Y dice de que Scooby-Doo empezó a vivir con Hugh Hefner, el de Playboy, el Playboy Mansion, la mansión de Playboy. Y bueno, después de ahí desaparece y ellos creen
But
que
he was a
murió.
good guy. He was a good guy. Hugh Hefner loved Scooby-Doo. They were friends.
Dice de que ellos creían de que habían muerto o habían desaparecido por mucho tiempo, hasta que ellos quisieron comenzar de nuevo a aprender en los finales de los 90, y por eso es de que empiezan a preguntarle todo, empiezan a aparecer todos los pioneros, y todos están en conflicto y peleándose. Entonces vos le vas a preguntar a Don Campbell algo y dice, eso no es Loki, y vos vas para el otro y te dice, no, sí se hace así.
¿Qué es lo que le pasó a ella?
¿Entendés? Y por eso es que ella hicieron el campamento de Los Ángeles, para juntarlos a todos en un solo lugar y ponerse de acuerdo.
¿Eso en qué año?
Eso fue en el 2000.
And there's more. I know all the stories, but the thing is that the reason I organized the camp is because first Greg was organizing the information, and so we wanted the information, so Greg invited me to teach with Sundance, and Greg invited me to teach because I moved to Las Vegas. And at this point, Dawn is mad at me too for learning from Greg. So, but I tried my best to always stay, connected. And so every time I bring Dawn to Montreal, he was always the first one that I bring everywhere. I bring Dawn to Hip Hop International because I was the head judge for many years. I bring all the OGs back to judge. So my contribution was to give back. But during this all the way up until before 2020, where we would have the last Las Vegas hockey camp, I was able to bring back all the pioneers together. Yeah, from 2015. To sit and talk, not all of them. Shabba-Doo, I couldn't do it yet, because it was, but Scooby and Don made up, they would fight. But we started hearing, and Demita would tell the story, and when they sit together, we finally hear all the stories. But a lot of the stories that I learned that was mind-blowing was when Scooby came back from the dead.
He did a workshop in New York. I was there.
Yeah. And when he came back from the dead, he lived in Las Vegas. And Greg just passed that year, and Scooby appeared. And it was like divine intervention.
Ok, entonces,
At the end.
sí, esto es el final. Bueno, primer punto, retrocediendo un poco atrás, dice de que tienen que recordar de que el nuevo grupo, que era Greg, Fluky y Shabba-Doo, organizaron, la ayuda entre ellos tres, organizaron todo lo que para poder enseñar el Loki. Ellos organizaban y ponían nombre a los pasos. Entonces,
And Greg was the main one they were following Greg's,
pero
more.
Greg era el principal, lo seguían más a Greg.
And Shabba-Doo as the manager to talk to the business people.
Shabba-Doo era el manager para hablar para hacer los business.
¿Quién es Shabba-Doo y Fluky?
Greg, Shabado y Fluky se juntaban para hacer eso. Ok, ahora para el frente lo que ella está contando es de que cuando ella empezó a aprender con Greg, Dom se empezó a enojar, como ¿por qué estás aprendiendo con Greg?
Porque ya había tomado clases antes con Don Campbell ella.
Sí, sí, sí.
O sea, que porque se escucha solamente ahí y la gente de acá atrás no escucha. Mejor termina tú de traducir como todo y de ahí ya sacas.
Dale. Entonces, como que se enoja Greg, y entonces ella siempre se asegura de que cada vez que ella hace un evento o va para un lado, siempre lo lleva a Don para todos lados, lo llevaba a Don a todos lados. Ella armaba algo, traía a Don, hacía algo, llevaba a Don. Entonces, para que siempre esté ahí, ella dijo eso. Y también dijo de que muchas de las historias que ella escuchó y de que le hizo explotar la cabeza fue cuando Scooby-Doo volvió de la muerte. Pero fue el mismo año que fallece Greg. Entonces aparece Scooby-Doo con nuevas historias.
¿En qué año?
Which year?
Greg passed 2010, February, and Scooby appeared end of 2010, 2011, like right in October at the end.
Dice de que fallece Greg en febrero de 2010 y aparece, resurge Scooby-Doo 2011. O sea, comienza de 2011, no, 2011 octubre de 2011.
Because he saw, imagine that, him and his wife are sitting at home and the strip of him in America comes on TV and Tyrone says, Scooby-Doo was an amazing dancer, and Scooby-Doo's like, they remember me? No. And then he says to his wife, and his wife did not know he was a dancer. That was 2010, the hippest strip in America. It was a documentary that Don Cornelius, it was for Don Cornelius, he did it for Soul Train.
Hippest Crew, right?
The hippest strip.
Hippest Strip. Entonces dice de que Scooby-Doo, imagínense que Scooby-Doo está sentado, su esposa no sabía de que él era bailarín y nada, o sea, tenía una vida secreta. Y de que entonces aparece Tyrone en un show de TV que se llama Hippest Strip.
Documentary.
Hippest Strip Documentary, que es un documentario de Don Cornelius. Y aparece Tyrone diciendo Scooby-Doo es el mejor bailarín, no sé qué cosa. Y Scooby-Doo,
un gran bailarín.
Y Scooby-Doo estaba como, oh, ¿se acuerdan de mí? En eso fue 2010.
And so his wife was like, what?
Y su esposa estaba como, ¿qué?
That's you? Because she's seeing him on TV, right?
Porque lo ve en la televisión, dice, ¿eso sos vos?
So she went on the internet and she started typing Jimmy, Scooby-Doo, Foster, and then Pa, and then Locker Legend had the segment, and he saw that Greg had passed. She sent condolences to the website, who was owned by OG Skeet. That's another story. And then OG Skeet came on Facebook the next day. Scooby-Doo's alive!
Entonces la esposa de Scooby-Doo va a la computadora y busca y tipea Jimmy Scooby-Doo Foster para ver el nombre y encuentra diferentes informaciones y toca en Looking Legends y ahí aparece que Greg falleció. Entonces ella escribe un comentario diciendo, mis pésames, ¿entendés? Como tristeza. Entonces en ese momento Looking Legends lo estaba manejando OG Skeeter Rabbit. Y OG Skeeter ve el mensaje y dice, no, Scooby-Doo está vivo.
Because Greg used to tell us, when Greg teaches us, he talked always about Dawn. But he was not talking, they were fighting. And he always showed us all the Scooby-Doo steps. The stop and go, the scuba, the Scooby-Doo. So they were always talking about Scooby-Doo. So when he came back, we were like, come Scooby, teach us. And he told us the stories of Dawn from first experience, because he was the first one to see Dawn. This is why Scooby is important, because he broke down the 8 for us. Because if not, we wouldn't have understood why it was so important the fundamentals that I learned already with Dawn, but I didn't understand. None of us did at the time, because we're looking for the keys, the jumps, the tricks, the this. No, Dawn had fundamentals, and Scooby was like, if, like I said in the class, I do this, and I do Scooby-Doo. This is the Scooby-Doo, that's not the Scooby-Doo. Am I locking? That was our first class. And we were like, no. That's it. So this is why the whole story becomes really important, of the importance of Dawn as the creator, the importance of Scooby as the second or the first locker that learned from Dawn by watching, and then Greg and this. All of them are important. All the way to Shab, all the way to Tony, they all have good stories. So you have to go and seek the source and ask questions to the pioneers, even the Mina Joe. Go and ask. Ask them. Send a message. If you don't know, if you can't reach, I reach them for you.
That's the first time when I met Scooby in 2010, 2011. He did a workshop in New York, and I had to show up.
Lo que tradujo fue de que tienen que entender la importancia de que haya vuelto Scooby-Doo, porque Scooby-Doo da los 8 que nosotros cuando tomamos con clases con Don Campbell no entendimos bien. Claro. Porque Don Campbell no le explicaba, ellos no desarrollaban, no explicaban mucho. Pero la persona de que, la segunda, o sea, está la primera que lo creó y la segunda que aprendió, o sea, el primero que aprendió Scooby, entonces tiene la esencia. Entonces cuando tenés la esencia y la persona te lo puede separar en 8, cuando vos querés buscar la llave hacia el camino verdadero, entonces es buenísimo que esté una persona así, Scooby.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Damas y caballeros, otro aplauso para... Cortar este espacio, también mi trabajo es cuidarlos, así que hay que comer porque ahora vienen las batallas y después hay más clases. Ok, así que es importante que ahora, si quieren comer, coman o se revitalicen porque ahora vienen las batallas. Ok, yo calculo que acá, y ahora cuánto, ahora en un rato. Breaking acaba de terminar. Ok, Breaking, voy de a uno, tengo 3 salones. Breaking acaba de terminar. La clase de Memphis Juken de Future empezó hace 20 minutos, un poco más, por eso necesitaba que cierren, ¿sí? Y porque en breve también van a empezar las batallas. Tenemos un tiempo considerado de más o menos, no te puedo decir a qué hora exacto empieza la batalla. Blocking. Las batallas siguen ahora, sí, está en el cronograma. Está en el cronograma, así que, ¿nos sacamos una foto? Eso mismo. ¿Nos sacamos una foto? No se vayan. ¿Sí?